Welcome back to the Bruce Poinsette Show. We have a special guest in the building today, Mr. Max Smiff.
Hello, hello.
How are you doing today?
It's been a pretty good Wednesday. Is it Thursday? It's Thursday. I don't know.
Definitely Thursday, but it's all
it's
good.
been a good Thursday then.
you know, in we're coming in on special times. You're in the, as you know, we shoot in the Portland Art Museum.
Yes.
And as far as Twitter is concerned, you may or may not be at war with the Portland Art Museum.
At war? That's so strong.
No. But you recently wrote an article, Flashes of the 2020 Protests for the Portland Mercury. Subhead, of course, Portland Art Museum's perspective celebrates photographers of color who captured the 2020 George Floyd protests, but images of police violence are strangely absent. And if people have been on Twitter and follow you, you've gotten some strong reactions to this.
To be fair, and I think this happens a lot with social media and with, just modern press. If you read the article, it does not actually say what the header of the article, which I did not write, says. So I can see some people saying, oh my gosh, he wants more pictures of police brutality. And if you start with that and don't read the article, then I can understand people being upset. But if you read the article, it's pretty clear that I'm looking for context, not for police pictures. Yeah.
Right. Let me just pull up. See, I had one quote that I think was, we talk about the function of the museum.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So it's like, this exhibit, which fills a room previously occupied with art representing Frida Kahlo and Diego Rivera, places the energy of the protest firmly in the past. This is the natural function of a museum, to recognize the past, and I've not been able to shake the feeling that, to many, the resistance is over.
Yeah.
I think just to, again, kind of put this in perspective, again, we're in the Portland Art Museum.
We are.
Where this exhibit is. And like I said, I've read the article. Most of it is very, I recognize the brilliance of individual photographers.
Yeah.
And, you do point out, someone who was out there in the streets covering the protest, and also, very much crediting the photographers who were also out there.
Yeah.
That, it is noticeable, and you can't help but feel some kind of way. Specifically, you pointed to one photo, I think it was of a officer or police chief, Chuck Lavelle.
It was, yes.
That kind of, how you say it, like woke you up.
Yeah, I mean, the way I felt about it was, I kind of got a chance to go in the first day and kind of get the preview, the early, viewing, and I walk around, I'm looking at all the pictures, and I that part of the exhibit, Byron Merritt's section, is kind of in its own little area. And when I was looking at the pictures, he basically captured pictures from in front of the Apple store where the large George Floyd mural had gone up. Mm-hmm. So his area, his section with his pictures is basically a collection of portraits that he took in that space. And in context, that makes a lot of sense. But one of the portraits is of the police chief and a second, and like another officer, and they're in front of the George Floyd poster, with a smirk. And since he's taking portraits in front of this space, he would be taking portraits of anyone that comes in that space, right? So it could be a clown, it could be a cop, it could be a person, it could be a student, it could be kids, it's whatever. So that makes sense in that individualized context. But I felt like in the larger context of the exhibit, that picture felt strange. A picture of a police officer and a police chief smiling in front of a picture of George Floyd, who was murdered by police, which started this entire protest, and they're sitting there with a picture of the police chief smiling. It doesn't make any sense to me. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. So once I saw that, I kind of got out of the mode of, oh, these are all my friends' pictures. These are cool pictures of people that I know or have just met or I follow their work. And it became what else have I been missing? Then I started looking more at the exhibit, and I kind of because I was in the, hey, this is really nice, little flashback to the past, and man, makes me want to walk again, just like Linnea said. But at the same time, once that hit, it was kind of like, well, what's missing here? Because I couldn't shake the feeling already that something was kind of missing, but I was happy. You know what I mean? It's like when you're kind of distracted, and then once I had a thread to pull, I started pulling that thread. Why would this police officer picture being here? How does it make sense with the rest? Does not make sense with the rest. And then I had to kind of wrestle with those things and think of what is the intent of this exhibit. And I started to realize, oh, what's missing is not images of police violence, but what's missing is the context of what brought people out in the streets. This is showing people a flash of a moment. Lots of people standing on bridges, raising their hands, standing on cars, dancing, standing in front of cops, pointing at them. The cops are pointing back. People walking through tear gas bits, right? But it's not really showing why we're there. There's an entire area that shows George Floyd in the background of every single picture. But there's nothing that really indicates why people were angry. It just shows that people were there and that there were these feelings and emotions. And I started to think, like, how does that impact, what is a museum allowed to do? I'm not asking for pictures of police hurting anyone, but how much context can they put? Could they put a thing saying, instead of saying, these artists were doing this and this, could they say in response to massive police violence? There's nothing that says that there. Across the country. And it's not just about George Floyd. We had people getting shot by cops here too in that same time frame. Black people getting shot by cops in that same time frame. Mentally handicapped people we're under investigation or under, what do you call it, with the feds, under lawsuit or whatever it is, right? So when you have all that context just missing, it makes it look like people were just out there passionate and we're proud of them for trying to do whatever it is they were doing and go home now. I also thought it was strange that the pictures are not in frames. They're tacked to the wall, which makes it feel very temporary, right? I don't think it could have been an artistic choice. That's fine, but each choice results in a reaction, right? And my reaction is these pictures are on the wall tacked, the same way I put stuff on my fridge or I'm on the bulletin board of my job. But the pictures that I love, I put in frames. They have frames. They're not shorter frames in the museum. So that's a conscious decision. And why was it made that way? Is it a lack of forethought? Is it just a quick thing because we need to get this done today? Was it, or was it a conscious decision? And what was the meaning behind that? I don't know. I didn't get an answer for it when I asked around. So that, to me, was the thing that I commented in the article. That I felt that the framing of the entire exhibit in general, including the frames individual, was just. It was hiding something. It was holding something back. And someone asked, how come you have to do that? How come you have to think that? I said, well, and someone commented that, when you choose to exclude certain bits of information from an exhibit about an event, that's a political statement. And I don't think it's necessarily a bad thing, but I think it's something that should be discussed and thought about.
Yeah, I mean, I think just to kind of bring this out to like a macro level.
Yeah, of course.
I think this is kind of like elicit an interesting conversation about how we engage with art.
Yeah.
And like Ado and I, before you got here, we're kind of just talking about, I don't know, just like the frustration or kind of like being over this idea of just like doing safe stuff in Portland. Like for better or worse, I think art should make you feel something.
Yeah.
It should elicit an emotion. And sometimes you're not going to be happy with it. You're not going to be,
Yeah.
So I think, you have this exhibit and then you have someone engaging with it critically.
Yeah.
Praising many parts of it, but also asking these questions. Yeah. And is that not how this is supposed to work? And is that not how, you have the art, you have the critique of the art, and you have a lot of people in the city reacting to the art and the critique of the art and actually like engaging with it with actual emotions. Like, is that, again,
the point of the art?
Yeah.
It's not the point of art.
But also,
is that not the point? Like, is the point not to have something that is aesthetically interesting to you, but also causes you to think more? Mm-hmm. That's why that's why so many people can't get on tune with like a lot of like radio music or whatever, because it's mindless, right? It's fine, it sounds good, it has the aesthetic quality that you like, the aesthetic pleasantries, but it lacks anything, right? It doesn't give you any new thoughts unless you're like a child, right? It doesn't do anything for you emotionally, and mentally. Whereas you find your album cuts, your things that you listen to, your more niche music, it fits into what you're doing and explores things that you're into, right? So that causes you to think in better ways. You know, you can watch, you know, Spider-Man and Friends and learn about manners. And if you're 6, that's great. But when you're an adult, you need a show that's going to give you something with real questions, not what do I do if I'm out of peanut butter? Go to the store. Like you need more than that when you get older. And art can do that for you. Not to say that art has to be educational or even like provide any answers, but it should get you thinking. In my opinion, it should get you thinking about something. And to me, like this perspectives exhibit, it did that. So to me, like I had some people say, well, I don't understand why you're like, you know, digging on. I'm like, I'm not digging on it. It got me thinking. Me saying, and then this part made me uncomfortable is the compliment. Because if I start the article off saying I didn't really feel any emotion watching the pictures, I was like, yeah, I was there. I feel it. People were like, oh my God, it's coming back to me. And I'm like, yeah, it didn't really leave for me. So I get that. But then like when I saw that picture, I was like, that woke me up. So thank you for that picture because it woke me up and it made me think about things. I wouldn't have included it because it's not what I would have done. But I'm not the same artist as him, right? So I feel like that's kind of like the beauty of the exhibit.
I mean, I'm just gonna, again, it's just my opinion, but if I were to hypothesize what the actual issue is probably that, you know, you have white people retweeting it. And
Could be.
People don't, like, you know, black writer talking about black photographers and kind of, because I'll admit, like, I think I reposted your article and I have like one white person write it to me. It's like, oh, you know, we're thinking about going, but we don't know if it like whitewashes the history and all that. And it's like, yeah, I could get why, you know, especially I think about this from my own perspective. It's like, I just hosted this thing last night and I had, you know, a person come up to me and was not really feeling it. And so, you know, having that, you know, that one like emotion of just like, oh, I finally did this thing, got that off, and you have this relief, and then have someone kind of like press you. I get that feeling of like, but at the same time, also, you know, it's again, like after a while, you get tired of doing safe stuff. I know I've done plenty of stuff that's just like, you know, people will reshare it because they feel like they need to, but that dies down
real quick
over time. You know, getting the nice like the claps and like, yeah,
good job, you wrote words, black man.
Yeah, like
no, you don't need that.
I want, even if it like makes people mad. So I was like, I'd rather have that. I want people to feel like I'm not just going out there to shock people. I'm saying
you're not
real things. Yeah, right. And I tell you off camera is like, what's kind of cool about this is like you kind of like you got the Charlemagne effect, but like organically and with visual art of all things.
Yeah, you know, it's weird to me. It's not really weird to me. It's normal. People just want to have something to debate, and they want to also put their own spin on things, which is natural. That's what I did, right? So people are going to see this piece and find things that they also are going to think about. To me, it's weird when people do that when they haven't seen the event. They haven't seen the exhibit, so they don't really have anything to feed back. They're just saying stuff based on internet vernacular, right? They're just saying stuff, rhetoric. I heard this, I'm going to say it too. You know what? Yeah, F the museum. Like, that's not what I said at all, bro. That's not what I said. I didn't go after the museum. But as far as, like, black people, like, I didn't go after any of the photographers. That was my thing for me. Like, I thought the exhibit was great, and I think that everyone did a wonderful job. But what I did want to do, and what I almost thought wouldn't be allowed for me to do, but you know, shout out to the Mercury for being real ones, is like I wanted to put the question back on the curators and the museum not the patrons, but the museum facilitators and program directors, and not in a way that's harsh or insulting, but to say, hey, as we're looking at this, can you understand how we're missing context? And say it in a way that they can understand, not a way that says, hey, I'm mad and because I'm black, man, you got to listen to me. But to say, you know, hey, legitimately here, this picture is it destroys the context of what you were doing. And when that happens, people are going to ask questions about your intent. And now I have questions about your intent. What was your intent? And to create the conversation. So if the article did that, and the article is getting people to question, hey, what's the intent? And that's part of why I didn't say anything after the article posted the first day. I just retweeted it and left it alone. put some stuff on Instagram or whatever with the pictures and let it go. But I didn't want to really comment any further. I'd already written 1,500 words that was edited down, and I knew, and the edits I think were actually very good. But I wanted to see how the article stood on its own and how people can read it, and they're going to misinterpret and hear things wrong. But I just want to let it go and let the conversation go. And naturally, the conversation among Black people, I felt, including one of the people who's actually pictured in the exhibit, was that it did feel like people's energy had moved toward, oh, let's honor those people and not let's go do what we were doing. And they felt like, well, one particular a person messaged me and said that was an exhibit and said that, you know, they thanked me for it because they said it gave them some language to kind of rationalize some of their feelings about being plastered on the side of the building, actually, you know, and feeling like we're still here. All right. And then there were also some people that felt, you know, that like it wasn't so useful. So I tend to kind of just focus on people who it did help. I got a lot more people who were saying that it helped them, or that it gave them some, you know, way to quantify their feelings. And to me, that's really important when you're writing. When I'm writing, is to kind of feel what people are feeling and then be able to put that into words for them, as well as everyone else to understand us. I feel like that's a key component of the way I like to write. So if I have the option, I always tell people, if you're going to pay me to write what I want, I'll always take that. If you pay me to write what you want, I might or might not. But this is something that I definitely got paid to write what I wanted, and I wrote what I wanted.
Yeah, and I think, again, from the micro level, you know, you talk about in the article as far as like what you think is missing in terms of like just like that context, like why people are out there. But then just, again, from I don't know, maybe I'm just in that space where I don't know, it's like I kind of like messy stuff now for a reason. You know, even when it's not like this, I don't feel like this is that messy, but Portland is Portland, where it feels like that.
We're so afraid of every conversation, right? And it's a thing that happens in liberal spaces. And by liberal, I mean liberal. You know, like people become very obsessed with optics and manners, which are good things, or things that you should pay attention to. I don't have an issue with people paying attention to those things, but they shouldn't become more important than what it is that you're trying to communicate or what it is you're trying to do. If I have to be so polite that I can't tell you what I need, I'm failing all of us, right? And I'm wasting our time, right? So I think it's important to be able to, you know, we always say speak truth to power, like speak truth to power. Don't be afraid that someone's gonna be mad at what you say, because someone's always gonna be mad at what you say. You know, if you say defund the police, you know, we should look at the police's processes and perhaps scale back some money, or you say anything, they're still gonna say no, and they're still gonna find a way to be mad at you, right? So if I'm saying, hey, this exhibit, I feel like it's really good. I do have some questions about the intent based on the inclusion of certain items. They call into question the intent of the entire thing, and then people say, "Oh, you're just being a jerk. You're just not listening to me, right? You're choosing not to listen actively, and you're trying to make it an issue, which in turn leads to more press and attention." So it's a strange beast, but that's just the way. That's just the world that we live in. You have to kind of hype things up and get your the Charlemagne effect, where you can, even if it's not really a thing. And I don't think this is a really big thing. Some people are actually upset about it, though. So I mean, that's a real thing. But again, that's the result of art. I consider my writing art. So if someone feels a way about what I wrote, maybe I did them a favor. Maybe they got to taste some.
I mean, I'll say, you know, as someone, you know, in the midst of, or has been in public art, I'm not gonna call it dispute, but that would
it's kind of like beef, but way more gangsters.
That would imply too much action. But public art snafus and debates and not negotiations with the city of Lake Oswego and the LO Arts Council over just trying to get, you know, any art by people of color just in the city. I do find it helpful when there's public lobbying to not just get the art there, but like get the art that actually means something to people. To, you know, when you've been in a behind the scenes negotiation and someone says, well, that's too much. Can we just have you know, black and brown people eating fruits and vegetables and call it good?
Well, there's
you know, you feel that a little bit more.
There is. And there is, I mean, I can't not say it. There is a huge push from the city, the county, etc., to like push Black boy joy images and, you know, happy Black people images. And, you know, I moved here in 92. I moved here in 92 from New York City. And before we moved here, we looked up all this stuff, and everything we read was about how inclusive and they were into diversity and all this stuff, right? Back in the 90s, right? We were super into diversity, and we embraced diversity and all this stuff, right? Then we got here, I'm like, there's no Black people here. Of course they embrace diversity. There's nobody here to embrace. You can embrace nothing for days, right? And then embrace one, but I did it, right? So it's like, what are we even doing? So like now it's kind of like not that different. You know what I mean? Like we're still in the same kind of environment where someone said in one of the tweet comments, they said, you know, they put it in better words than I did. They said there's a lot of people of white people doing well-meaning things. And I think that's real. I think a lot of people do things to be well-meaning. Just, I mean, if you look at what the intent of this exhibit is, it's excellent. It's to recognize Black artists or Black and brown artists who were, you know, present during the protests, and they got paid, and, you know, all these wonderful things. It's great. That's why I say it's a great thing. It's beautiful. At the same time, there's just layers of whiteness, like the onion, you know, and that's just the way it goes. You know what I mean? So like, there's always going to be something more that we can look at. There's no, this was perfect. This was the end. Doesn't solve anything. It does put things on memorial, and it does actually raise questions. I think it raises a challenge to the activist community and to the people that consider themselves part of the resistance, to say, well, if it's in the museum and it's not over, then, you know, don't get mad at the museum for saying it's in the past if you ain't out here. You know what I mean? So like, I feel like, again, with art, I'm not so big on it needs to fit in anybody's box. I don't think it needs to like fit everyone's liberal sensibilities or non-liberal sensibilities or leftist sensibilities or right-wing sensibilities. Art's art, and it's going to do what it does where it does. You know what I mean? To whom it does. And that's kind of like the key of it. If you can get more emotional reactions, if you can get more gaze out of more people, then your art is more inclusive perhaps, but it doesn't necessarily make it better. But or if it makes everyone happy but no one gets upset, doesn't make it better art. You know, it just makes it different. I mean, one of my favorite songs is Queen, you know, the Bohemian Rhapsody. It's a great song, but like it's kind of violent. Like it just changes on you all the time. It just does random stuff. You try to, okay, this is, whoa, shoot, you're screaming now. You know what I'm saying? Like there's a lot that goes on. But that's part of what makes it so interesting, is that it does so many different things for so many different people. But it just depends. You know, art is art. I was interviewed at the event when we were there together for the opening night by Jeremiah Hayden for the PSU Vanguard. And he also saw the picture, and he brought it up to me. He was like, so have you seen the one picture? And I'm like, yeah, the cop picture. He's like, yeah. Like it was already like on everyone's mind. Like people were already like whispering about it. It wasn't like I made it up. And he was like, what did you think about that? And I think he quoted me saying like, you know, art is art. And then when you look at the context in which the art was created and shared, it makes sense when you look at it in a different context, or for a context that certain people are expecting when they get here. You might get something different. So that's just like, but that's the point of the art. The point of the art is to make you question. The point of the art is to drive discussion. The point of the art is to have people think at a different level than they were before they saw it.
Yeah. Just lastly, I feel like some of the it's like some of the apprehension may have come from this, well, I'll just call it like a scarcity mindset of, you know, this worry anytime there's, you know, you have a big platform. So if you're, in theory, if you're critiquing, you know, art, this exhibit in the Portland Art Museum showcasing photographers of color, that, you know, okay, well then they're just gonna, you know, do the white people thing and be like, well, we tried. And I think think it's safe to say that we're beyond that at this point. But I remember even like when I was, lurking through, because like I said, I enjoy some of the mess. So seeing some of the reactions, just like, popcorn, 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 But I remember someone did type in just like, I think the response was just like more public art or something, just like very simple like that. And it was like, oh yeah, that's the other part that's in this, or it's like that fear of that this may be it. And it's like,
I didn't get that from that response, but I see how you did, and that's cool. No, I mean, I can see how somebody would be like, oh no, don't make Massa mad. No, they're not gonna put an art in the museum no more. but in reality, I feel like I pose it as a challenge. You did this. This was a great job. What if we did more? What if we went one level deeper in the onion and said, what if we take away one more layer of white perspective from this? The curator is a white person that reports to a white person. So again, we talked about this before in other venues. There's always the layers of whiteness you have to get through to get your art out. So that's okay. The white people have the privilege to just host and do these things. Part of the design itself, but also let's again, what does it look like to change those barriers, and what does that mean to do that? Why is there no black led museum? Are there black executives on the staff? Are there any black curators here? I don't know. Maybe there are. They weren't on this though, so let's talk about it, right? How can we get black art directly out through a black eyes into the media? It's not people. It's like sometimes I think there's a lack of trust of black people to do things, but like people like a Jordan Peele in the art spaces are really tearing that apart and showing like, hey, I don't need you. Tyler Perry was kind of a joke, but also very successful, but kind of a joke. And Oprah Winfrey is like, Oprah. But then like you see like someone like Jordan Peele, it's like, I'm just being black, bro. I'm hiring the same black actors over and over again. I'm getting this done, bro. Like we're doing this. And it's like, if you give black people agency, we can do some pretty amazing things. I think this was pretty amazing, but I would have to challenge and ask, maybe not the Portland Art Museum, perhaps the next benefactor says, hey, how can I do this in a way that penetrates even more into the black society, penetrates even more into the hearts of making people think about why people were out there and what it means to have a protest that lasts over 100 days, and why it is that all the photos are from the first 60. It's not a knock, but it's something to think about, right? Something to think about.
Absolutely. Well, yeah. Matt Smiff, thank you again for taking the time this afternoon.
Thank you guys for having me. Appreciate you guys.